Hi everyone, it's Tamara here with another card making tutorial. This time I'm actually using some of the accessory stamps from the Little Nightmares stamp set from Wandering Wabbit. I just wanted to show you that you can actually utilize with digital stamps the accessory stamps that come with them to create an actual scene. I've printed out all the accessories that come with the Little Nightmares stamp set. As you can see, there's a heap that come with the set, but I've decided to use the bowl of eyes, which is just down the bottom here, and also the candle, which is up the top, to create my scene. So I'm going to print it out onto some Copic XPress at Cardstock and expand it so that they're quite large. So I've got my big bowl of eyes and my candle and one of the sentiments that come with the set, and I'm going to create a scene using just these accessory stamps. Now, to complete my card, I'm also going to use the Weirdo Frame die set from Whimsey Stamps, because I thought these little circles could be eyes, and I'm going to use the Eek die set from Whimsey Stamps also to finish my card off. So I'm just going to grab out that Weirdo Frame die set and just work out where I need to set my scene. So I'm just kind of centering those circles so they don't obscure any of the images or sentiment. So I'm just outlined that, and now I can organize where I want my table to sit and where my wall will start. So I'm kind of just setting it a little bit behind my bowl of eyes. So I'm just using my T ruler to set that out. Now I'm just going to do a full layer of my lightest color, which is going to be E42. So I've just kind of got my pen on the side so that I get a nice kind of like even spread of my ink. It just helps you to get a smoother blend using the side of your marker, because you're using more of that nib. Now I just want to show you, I'm going to just set some of the shadows that the bowl will be casting. Obviously most of our light will be coming from our candle, so that is putting that bowl into you know, having a little bit of shadow around the base and on that left hand side. Now I'm just doing some really quick easy kind of stroke marks. Obviously the candle base will also be throwing a shadow, and I just wanted to show you just how really easy it is. You don't have to, you know, go in and make, you know, the wood look so perfect, because it's kind of just setting the base of our scene. So I just want to show you just adding some little kind of flicks like this to put some wood grain. Looks like, you know, timber once you kind of finish all the coloring. So it doesn't have to be perfect. You know, people aren't going to be looking at your timber frame, they're going to be looking at the whole picture. So, you know, you can, you know, put a little bit of time into your scenes around your images, but, you know, basically you want to concentrate on those images, because that's what most people will see, and they'll also see the whole of your kind of project rather than looking at little bits and pieces. So, you know, don't be extra harsh on yourself, because overall people will see what effort you've put into making your card. Now we'll just blend out with that lightest marker, the E42, to try and smooth out that blend. But we do kind of want a rough look, because we're kind of wanting a rough kind of timber look to our table. Now I'm going to go through all the colors again, just to reinforce our shadows and also the grains in our table. So I'm bringing that E47 in again. I was going to try and do a little knob there, but I'm just going to keep it pretty simple today and just do these rough lines that we're going to get all over our table. My main concentration is going to be the wall with our light shining from our candle and our bowl of eyeballs. So now I'm just going to blend that table out with the E44, and just being really rough and ready with this as I get these colors blended out. So just slowly working that color into where our highlight is. Then we'll bring in our E43 to slowly color out those shadows. And then once we've finished with that, we'll bring back in our lightest marker just to give it another go over to smooth out our coloring with the E42. So now that's going to blend that out really nicely. Just working with that side of the marker to make sure we get that nice smooth blend. Now we'll get started on our wall. I'm going to be using different colour greys for this wall. So I'm starting off with my W markers, but I'm going to also be using my C markers and my N markers. So you can pretty much do this with any markers, grey markers that you have in your stash. And it's nice to mix them up because it just gets some different tones of grey onto the walls and just adds a little bit more interest to the wall as well. Now on that left hand side is going to be in most darkness because our bowl and also our eyes will be throwing shadows, and obviously our light source is coming from our candle, which is on the other side. But I'm slowly going to creep in up and just leave that kind of like a highlight space around where our flame is, so that we can add some yellow markers in with that. So I'm coming in now with my N5 just to blend that out, and so all that left side is now fully coloured. So we're just going to go up and around and just slowly work down. You can see I'm being quite rough because I want a really kind of stony looking wall. Now to do my final blend out of my greys, I'm bringing in my W4 marker. So I'm just kind of making sure I've got a nice smooth blend and just softening up all those other greys on the other side to kind of match in. And now you can see I've got a bit of a circle of light around where our flame is. So I've just brought that W marker up a little bit, and now I'm just going to bring in our Y11 and go over that grey as well, because we want to make sure we get a nice kind of soft merging of the colours of the yellows to the grey. So our brightest yellow or our lightest yellow will be in the middle, and our darkest yellow around the outside. And I've just brought that W marker back in to soften that blend, go back in with that Y11 and then finish off with that Y00 to get a nice smooth blend out. Now for my bowl, I'm going an orange bowl, but I want to make sure that I've got a nice bit of contrast, and I want that bowl looking like it's in shadow on that left hand side away from our candle flame. Now I'll bring in my YR04 and go over that E19. Now it wasn't kind of blending out the way that I wanted, so I'm going to do a little bit of tip to tip because there is a bit of difference in the color between E19 and YR04. So as you can see, when you use the tip to tip method, it really helps to get a nice smooth transition between those two colors. So that's blended out nicely. Now I'll bring in my Y38. Now obviously this is a yellow marker, but it's got a lot of orange to it, so it works really well with your yellow red markers. Then I'll bring in my Y35 to blend over to our highlight. Then my Y32, and then around where that candle will be throwing some light, I'm using that Y11 that we used on the wall. Now, again, I'm going to go over those colors again. So obviously also inside that bowl will be in shadow. So I've popped that E19 in there, and I'm going to go through again and do exactly what I did the first time. So again, doing our tip to tip with our E19 and YR04, just doing like little flicking motions to get a nice smooth blend out to go into that highlight spot on our bowl. And now we'll go in, once we finish with that YR04, put our lids on and bring in that Y38 again, finish colouring in because that base will be quite in shadow with the bowl kind of coming over it. We'll go around the side, which will be a little bit in shadow but not much, and put in our Y35 just to get that colour blended out, our Y32, and then to finish off that Y11 again, so we've got a nice bright highlight from our candle. Okay, now that bowl's finished, we'll colour up our flame. So where the light burns brightest on a candle is actually at the base near the wick. So I've got my Y02. My darkest colour at the top will be my YR09, and then we'll blend that out, just working between those colours of the YR18 and the YO2 to get a nice smooth blend. And then we'll actually start colouring our candle base. So obviously the shadows will be where that candle wax is dripping down the candle, and also at the very base where those folds are. Then we'll blend that out with the E44, slowly working out where those creases would be. Then our next color will be Y28. So slowly blending that down to where our highlight will be, and our obviously brightest part of our candle will be up the top where that flame will be hitting and causing some light on that. So Y26 to finish off the base, and then just going to leave that highlight color at the top, which will be my Y21, as it will be closest to our flame. Now we'll start coloring up our eyeballs. I'm throwing in a little bit of shadow, so we still want them to look like white eyeballs, but we do want to put a little bit of color down so it shows that we have actually colored them. And I want them to look kind of rounded, so I'm just kind of going up and around that sphere to show that they are round eyeballs. So now we're going to go in with our C3 marker. Now I thought that was quite dark, so I'm going to blend that C3 out with the B31 rather than have the B31 as the darkest color. Then blend that out with the C1, slowly working into that white space, but we still want to leave quite a bit of white space to where that actual light will be shining from that candle onto our white eyeballs. So blend that out with the C00, and that's our eyeballs done. And I'm just going to ensure that we've got a nice smooth blend out to our white cardstock with my colorless blender. Now for our actual eyeballs themselves, I'm going to color them green to offset that beautiful orange bowl that we've got. And again, we've got to remember we're going to leave a nice highlight on that right hand side where that flame is throwing light onto our eyeballs. So we'll blend that out with G29, and next color in this combo will be G46, keeping them nice and dark on that left hand side. And then our color will be G43, up to that little highlight, but still leaving that bit of white to have that beautiful shine from our candle onto our eyeballs. So again, just using that colorless blender to soften that edge to that white highlight. Now I wanted to actually put some little veins that appear in eyeballs. So you can do it with your Copic markers, but I find a nice sharp pencil makes it so much easier to get these beautiful fine lines of blood running into these eyeballs. So I'm just doing random lines with some kind of coming up into a Y shape, and just doing this different kind of lines all around those eyes to finish off these spooky bowl of eyeballs. So come in now with those down on our bottom eyeball, just slowly working around. So you don't have to be an artist to this, you're just doing little squiggly lines coming out from the back of the eyeballs where they would normally sit in your head. Nice and spooky for Halloween. So now we've got that finished off. That is our colouring all done. Now some of our lines got covered up with our colouring, so I'm just going to go in with my pencil again, just reinforce those lines and go all around there so I know where to cut out my panel so that it fits perfectly behind this frame. So now I've circled all the way around, and now I'm going to grab out my little scissors and just do some fussy cutting. Now you want to go onto the inside edge because obviously that will be the inside of that frame. So I'm just going really quickly through this because I'm sure you've seen me or others fussy cut out. Just make sure you move that panel as you go around that frame. Now with my actual frame, I'm going to do a black frame of that, so I'll run all these through my die cutting machine off camera. My little eyeballs, I'm going to cut the circles that match in with our frame out of black and white cardstock. Now when I've lined this up again, I've noticed that it is still a little bit showing out, so I didn't do it quite well enough. So I'm just going to go in again with my pencil and go around that frame, just holding that in place. So there's only little sections that need recutting. So once I've gone around this, I will fussy cut that off camera again, like you saw me doing previously. So I'm not going to show that again for you. So now that that's all cut to size, I'm going to get my little precision glue tool and just get a small amount of glue around the outside of my panel, where I'll be able to stick my frame in place. I find it's easier to actually put it on the panel, and that way you know exactly where to put your glue and you're not squeezing glue in spots that you don't want any glue to be. So now I've lined that up and our frame is perfect and ready to go for our eyeballs to go on. Now off camera I put all my eyeballs together so I know what little black spots are going to be on my white dots, but I'm just going to pop some of these white circles on to the actual frame to show you how they just fit in perfectly, so they're actually all sized to match that frame. So I'll show you these two, and then I'll do the rest off camera because it's just sticking the same kind of white circles on all of those dots. So I've done that off camera. And now just for some of the eyeballs that I'm going to pop on, I'm going to pop this one on. I was going to center it, but I kind of want them all looking in to those eyeballs that are sitting in our scene. So I'm just going to face that one looking into the left there. So I've got a bit of glue that's squeezed out there, so I just have to wipe that off. Now I did the rest to the right and down the bottom, but for the others you can either get some more small black circles, but I'm just going to use some Nuvo drops. So I always like to do a little test on a piece of scrap cardstock, and then I make sure I get rid of that so that it's not sitting on my desk and I'll accidentally put my hand in it. So now I'm just going to make some little eyeballs with my Nuvo drops just on these smaller circles that form around, again all looking into our bowl of eyeballs. So I've allowed them time to dry before I actually do my glossy accents, because I don't want to be putting my hand on anything. So now I'm just going to pop some glossy accents on those black irises so that they look nice and shiny like my Nuvo drops. Now for my shadow panel, I'm going to do that in black, but I wanted to match the bowl that's sitting in our image with the word eek that sits on top of our shadow die, so that all of this card kind of ties in nicely together. So I've grabbed out some scrap Copic cardstock and I'm just going to blend out all the same colors that we used for that bowl. So again, I'm just using the side of my markers so that I get a nice smooth blend out between all of these colors. I'm just making sure that I'm getting enough color on this panel to make sure that we can cut that out perfectly with our eek letters. So now that lines up, I've run that through my die cutting machine and also the shadow die in the black, and now I'm going to line everything up so that it sits perfectly on our little shadow die. So once that's all lined up, I'm going to get that glued on. Now you can also just use that frame if you wanted to make sure that you're putting this in exactly the right spot. So you can just line that up, put a little bit of tape to hold that in place, flip that over, and then you can just lock your letters into that shadow die and you know that they're going to go in to the exact spots that you want. So I've glued them on off camera because you've likely seen me do that before. Now I've cut and scored a orange card base, and I'm going to get some foam tape on the back of our panel and also behind our eek sentiment. So just to making sure this is lined up. Now when I was lining this up, I forgot that I wanted the creep it's sweet sentiment to be nice and straight, because that little frame is a little bit off center. It kind of made it hard to get that straight, but then if you use that sentiment, it's easy to make sure you get that straight onto your panel. And I'm just locking that eek around that eyeball so that eyeball's still peeking out through the base. And this is the finished card for this tutorial. As soon as I saw the Little Nightmares set and all the accessories that came with it, I knew I wanted to use the bowl of eyeballs and the candle to create this scene, and using that weirdo frame die set to create some more eyes looking in at our eyeball image. I think that works really well. I hope you've enjoyed this card making tutorial. If you have, please hit the like button, and if you'd like to see any future videos, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great day. Bye.